Hi, I'm Xenia, author of these books, and today we're going to talk about formatting your novel for print or e-reader, or at the very least how I do it. Sorry if I seem a bit run down today. I think I have a flu or something, but the algorithm waits for no one. So this is a little embarrassing, but I actually formatted my first book, Tethered, about 9 years ago, and I hated the process so much that I ended up making a template, and that's what I've used ever since. The templates are for either 4x7 books, like Tethered and the Grim of the Reaper here, or 5x8 books, like The Ghost of Mittermere. They take care of things from gutters to margins to page numbers to chapter headings and mirroring. They even come with instructions on how to put drop caps in your formatting if you want them. That template is for sale through the link in the description, and we're going to briefly walk through how to use it, as well as things to look out for if you're doing this yourself. So the template works in Microsoft Word. I believe you shouldn't have a problem copy pasting from other word processors into Word if you have access to it. So as long as your main bulk of your piece is in the normal style and your chapter titles or whatever headings you're using are in heading 1, this template should work for you. So to use the template, you open up the template file that comes with the purchase. You fill in the first little bit here, the Wolf of Dunstannock. And because we've used styles here, if I plug in something like, say, my name, it will plug in where my name needs to be throughout. So you'll see we go down a little bit, and it's put my name in the copyright because I'm indie, so it's going to be copyrighted to me. So once you kind of fill in the front matter of the book, there's only a couple pieces, then you should be good to move on to the actual content. And you will see there's blank pages and things. That's just to account for what you want to show on a right page versus the left page. Sometimes you do want a blank to account for that. So the instructions are right in the template. And I've already copied the book I'm going to be formatting today, so I can just paste it. It will take a second because it's a 109,000 word book. So now that it's loaded in, you can see we have properly formatted chapter titles, as well as our lovely text here. Now it has defaulted to normal Kindle. So what I'm actually going to do, and there are instructions on how to do all these little manipulations and anything you want to do if you're not happy with how it has come up by default. So now we can see it's got the indents we want. It's got the font, the Times New Roman, the classic. I like 11 font. You can go up to 12 and still be sort of in the standard. You can also adjust, and there's instructions how to do this, the fonts and things of the headers all at once to be more fantastical or more sci-fi or just more in line with your story. I have comments in mine, so it's having a moment, but I can just say continue. The guide that comes with it also talks about how to make a drop cap and how to troubleshoot things that can go awry, the most common problems I've found using this template. But once you've got those things sorted, you're pretty much good to go. The last thing, of course, you'll want to work out way at the end of your book is, of course, your about the author section. The template will fill in your name automatically, but of course you need to fill in a little bit about yourself and how wonderful you are so that your authors, your readers can learn a little something, and of course change out the photo as well. All the instructions for that are also in the document. Once you've filled in the template and you've given it a check over and you're happy with how it looks, you can go File, Save a Copy, Save as PDF, and save it. And that will give you a formatted template that works well with programs like Kindle Direct Publishing, Ingram Spark, places that will do physical prints. So this is the template I made and use. I really like it. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well, and it takes a lot of the headache out of it. But if you're someone who wants to DIY your own book formatting, that's totally fine. Just some things that I would research and look into if I were you, that this template takes care of for me, but I remember being something I had to work out, is you want to look at what fonts and sizes are normal for print. I like 11 or 12 Times New Roman, but I know for other genres it might be a little bit different. And you can sometimes get away with different sizing. If you want to do a large print book, you'll have to look into what sizing is acceptable for that. You'll want to make sure your paragraphs are indented correctly. You'll want to make sure your margins are correct for whichever printer you're going for. These margins, I haven't found anyone it doesn't work for. You'll also want to look into how to set up guttering. It was called guttering. And that, as you can see, I've got a wider margin on one side than on the other. And that's because in a print book, you have to account for the binding. So you'll see as you go through that it'll change sides. We have a larger margin on the left, now the right, now the left. And that's, of course, because you'll be flipping pages and you need that binding to stay consistent. Another thing that can be tricky to get is page numbers. They seem really straightforward, and in some ways they are, but sometimes to make other things work, you end up putting in what's called a section, and sometimes getting your page numbers to stay consistent between sections is a major headache. So just watch out for that, make sure to check them. You also want to make sure that your headings show up the way you want them to. I personally love books that have a bit of space in the chapters so that I can flip through and find a chapter heading really easily. If they start right at the top of the page, I think it looks really crowded. So if you are like me, you might want to look into how to do those extra gaps. In a future video, I will be walking through the KDP upload process so that you can see it with someone else doing it. But for right now, this is pretty much what you need for your inside section. Then we'll move on to talking about creating ebook files for Kindle Direct Publishing and general ebooks like Kobo or Apple Books. So ebooks use special types of files that allow the text to move and adapt more fluidly based on the size of the device and reader preferences. If you're publishing through Kobo and Apple Books, an epub file is really good. And if you want to publish on Kindle, I recommend using their special file format. It just seems to work the most fluidly with the fewest errors. Before you turn your work into an epub or a KDP file, you're going to want to make sure your work is as polished as possible, as edited as possible, because it is kind of not impossible, but just annoying to have to go back and change it. So get as much as you can done up front and then convert it. First, let's make an epub file. These will work on most e-readers and on phones with the right app. For this process, there's an awesome free app out there called Calibri. I'll put the link for that on the screen and down in the description. Once you've downloaded and installed Calibri, you'll open it to see something like this. The quick start guide is a good place to start. They'll give you a little run through, but just as an example, I'll convert a book real quick on here. So we're going to start in this instance by saying add book. We're going to go ahead and select Wolf of Dunstanach, which is book 2 in the Last Eclipse series. And you can use a Word file. I suspect it'll work with a Google Doc or like a Google Doc save file or whatever the Apple equivalent is. I suspect it will work the same. Now, as you can see, it's loaded into my library, but it doesn't have our cover yet. It doesn't have all the metadata, and it's still only in docx. So first thing we want to, while our book is highlighted, hit edit metadata, and that'll bring up a window that looks something like this. And we just want to fill it in. Now it's managed to pick up on the author and title, I assume because it's written at the top of the book itself, or maybe because it knows all my books are by me. This is in the Last Eclipse series. It already knows the series. It's number 2 in the series. Oh, perfect. Look at it go. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill out the rest of information here. Okay, so we've put in the publisher, the hoped for publishing date, and a cover. This cover isn't actually public yet. I'm going to do a reveal, but only like 16 people watch my video, so I figure you can get a sneak peek because you're special. So once you've got all that information sorted, you can go to the bottom and hit OK. Now you can see it has our cover saved. It says it's 2 of the Last Eclipse, all that good stuff. But it's still not an EPUB. So what I want to do is, while it's selected, come to the top and say Convert Books. It'll pop up this screen here. And again, we can see our beautiful cover image. It'll pull through most of the metadata that we put in there. Our output format we want is EPUB. There's lots of different options. So if you run into a system that wants something else, you could do that here. But for now, we're doing EPUB. And I'm sure you can go through these and change them. I've never needed to based on what I put in. So we're just going to roll with this and we're going to say, okay. And you can say in the bottom right here, it'll process the job. Now, generally speaking, it takes a couple minutes, so we'll pop back here in a moment. So now you can see if we highlight the Wolf of Dunstanach, we can see that it's in docx and EPUB formats, which is great. We can also, if we want to just double check it, we can say view or view a specific format or view with Calibri ebook viewer. I generally like view with Calibri ebook viewer. So when you first load up the Calibri ebook viewer, it will give you some instructions, and then you can flip through your book and make sure it's formatted how you want. You can also see if you change the size of the device, it'll change the way it's meant to be changed, so you can test at a few different angles to make sure things are how you want them. Now, this document was one that I just grabbed. It's not actually formatted for it, so I'm sure it's fine. Because it will be having another go over for proper formatting. But you can scan through and make sure everything's appearing how you want it. One thing to note is if something doesn't, and you're not sure how to change it on the word side, or if you are good at coding and you just would rather do it coding, you can go ahead and hit Edit Ebook in the top right here. So when you open up the Edit section, you'll get a new window that looks something like this, and it'll have a code section and your preview of whatever you've selected. You can double click areas from your book on the left-hand side here. If you don't know how to code, you want to be careful in here, but you can always just re-upload your book and try again if you do something that you regret. Personally, I am not a coder. I've used this exactly one time because I had an image that wasn't stretching to fit correctly. It was appearing very strangely. And thankfully, I was able to use good old ChatGPT for a little bit of coding help, because that's something it does okay at if it's simple code like this stuff. And while I would never use it for creative work, it is very handy for a little bit of code or something if you're stuck. So now we've got the Wolf of Dunstanach in an EPUB format. We like how it looks. We fixed whatever needed fixing. And now it's time to actually get it on our computer so we can upload it to Kobo, Apple Books, etc. So you're going to come up here and hit Save to Disk, and you're going to save it wherever you want to save it. And that's how you get an EPUB file of your novel. If you've made a mistake or you want to try it again, you can always remove the book and go through the whole process from scratch. So if you want to create a file for Kindle, they generally want you to have it in their special file format, and they'll allow you to do that through a free app called Kindle Create. I'll include a link for it in the description. And once you've downloaded and installed that, you'll see something like this for Kindle Create. And as you can see, you can resume. We're going to have a new project. If you haven't done this before, you'll be doing a new project. And it honestly walks you through pretty well what to do. So once again, we'll be choosing the Wolf of Dunstanach as our file. And now they're going to do their best to optimize it based on the formatting we have, and then we'll have a chance to edit it. So I'll restart this when they're done. So once you've finished your upload, you'll be taken to a screen that looks like this, and it's your preview. It will format it as best it can by default. So it'll automatically take your headings and turn them into chapter titles and apply its body settings to the body of your work. So what you'll want to do is review the headings that it thinks it's found, hit Accept Selected. So if you arrive here and you don't like the font for, say, the heading or the main text, you will find that if you just click on it or click on chapter title and go to formatting, you can't actually change the font. The little quirk of Kindle is you have to highlight it and then change it to whatever you're after. There's only 3 choices, but let's say that's more in line with my book. You can make lots of little changes and to get it closer to what you'd like. Like I said, there's only 3 fonts. It's never going to be exactly what you want, but it's, better than nothing. So just a couple of notes here is if you have comments in your document, they will all show up as little linked inserted notes here. Obviously, you don't want that. So you'll want to either go through your original document and delete all the comments, or you'll want to come through here manually and try to catch them all and delete. I do recommend going through your main document, however, as there's, next comment, which finds them all. Whereas if you miss one, just scrolling through, because they are also hidden in the text, as you can see down here, then that's just going to be really jarring for a reader to come across. Once you've been through and you like what you see, you can go ahead and either save it as a work in progress if you want to take some time away and come back with fresh eyes. You can preview it to make sure you're seeing what you like, that it looks the same in this system as it will to the reader, or you can publish it and then it will create the appropriate folder, the appropriate files for you that you can then download and use for your Kindle ebook. So my next tip is all about images. If you write fantasy, you might have a map at the front of your book. If you write anything historical, you might want pictures of people, or if you're doing a autobiography, you might want a picture of the house you grew up in, anything like that. So this is in Word. I do everything in Word, so I'm sorry I don't have things for other processors. This is the map I had done for the Theban Empire, the world where my books take place. And as you can see, it's very high res. Like, you can make out the hairs on the cows. I think I can go even closer. Yeah, it's an impeccable map. It's in great detail. I commissioned a fantasy cartographer, which is like an incredible job to have, to make it. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. So my pieces of advice for images are twofold. The first is to ensure that you're not going right up to your margins with your image. And that is because quite often systems like, for example, KDP will want to take a little bit more out of it than you might have originally budgeted for. So you want to keep it slightly smaller than you think you want, and you might still have to come back and shrink it up a little or move it on the page. We will be covering uploading to KDP in another video, so we'll talk about it then in more detail. The second thing is that if I just go and I say save as PDF, just a map, save, and we wait for it to download and convert, it looks okay when you're zoomed out, but the second you zoom in, you'll note that we've lost a ton of resolution. And it does this because the program actually compresses the image and makes it worse. And this is actually quite noticeable in the printed version. If you're suffering with this, I found two things that make a big improvement. It's still not perfect, but it's way better than it was. So the first is to go File, Options, Advanced, and you're going to scroll down to Image Size and Quality. You're going to say do not compress images in file. You want to change this to high fidelity. Okay. And that will help a lot. You can do one more thing though, is when you go to save it, you want to go into your browse window. So where you're figuring out where you want to save this. You switch to PDF, name your document. Just overwrite that one. And then you want to go into options. You want to come down here. You want to make sure PDF/A compliant is not checked. And you want to make sure optimize for image quality is checked. And with those changes, it still won't be perfect, but it'll be cleaner and better. And it can make a lot of difference for the final print product. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. I'll link that template down below, and if you can like and subscribe, it helps me out a lot. Until next time, happy writing.